the Chief Constable's position is obviously untenable. It's not just about the West Midlands, it's not just about a football match, it's not just about Israeli football fans, it's about whether the police do their jobs without fear or favour. And we've been dragging the information out of the police and the local council over a period of months now. The strong suspicion is that that was an hallucination by artificial intelligence, as the Labour Party is losing support to these Gaza independent candidates.
Welcome to Harry Cole Saves the West, the show where American grit meets British backbone. And a man with some British backbone is joining us today, the MP for West Suffolk, Nick Timothy. One of the rising stars of an increasingly diminishing Conservative Party. Small but perfectly formed. Nick, you've been campaigning doggedly on many things on behalf of your constituents, but also on behalf of your home region of the West Midlands. Talk us through what happened in October last year when Maccabi Tel Aviv tried to play a match against Aston Villa last October.
Well, I think the important thing to say is it's not just about the West Midlands, it's not just about a football match, it's not just about Israeli football fans. This is actually a really important story because it's about whether the police do their jobs without fear or favour, which is what the policing oath demands of them. And it's also about who holds the power in parts of our country, and it seems that in parts of our country the Islamists hold the power. So what happened was Aston Villa drew Maccabi Tel Aviv, an Israeli team, in the Europa League. Local politicians, including the local Gaza independent MP and local councillors, who'd all campaigned to say Israeli teams should be banned from international sporting competitions anyway, ran campaigns to get the game stopped altogether. And there was a threat of violence in the community, and the police ended up banning the away supporters.
A threat of violence from which community? Well, towards which community?
Yeah, so this gets to the heart of it. So the police decided that the game should go ahead without away fans. And
so without the Israeli fans?
Without the Israeli fans. And we've now seen official documents which show that their initial fears about disorder came from intelligence that said there were local people who have a strong dislike of Israel, who were preparing to arm themselves to attack the Israeli supporters. But they kept that information secret, and they ended up blaming the Israeli fans themselves for the ban by presenting them as being uniquely violent.
For our viewers in America and our viewers who aren't necessarily au fait with this entire story so far, this area of the West Midlands is one of the more diverse parts of the United Kingdom, one of the largest Muslim populations. There has been community tensions, as sort of euphemistically put, over the years. The match was, it did go ahead. Only subsequently, you've been sort of picking apart at the excuses and the justification used by the police to say that there was a threat, and as you say, that threat was presented as a threat of violence from the Tel Aviv fans who from scenes of footage in Amsterdam and various other places had on the rougher end of football violence, but it's not necessarily a unique problem to Israeli football fans. This caused a big old stink last October, and now we're only subsequently learning that actually a lot of the evidence presented that was used to convince the football authorities and the police that they shouldn't have fans there was basically nonsense.
Yes, and we've been dragging the information out of the police and the local council over a period of months now. It's a little bit complicated, but the chronology matters. So the police went to what they call the Safety Advisory Group. It's this committee chaired by the local council.
And that's presumably got some elder types on it and various others.
Well, it had two councillors on it who had already said that Israeli teams should be banned from international competition.
So they weren't exactly coming this from a neutral point of view.
And those councillors said in the minute, it's recorded in the minutes of the meeting, the community want this stopped. So it's quite clear
the community want this stopped.
Yes, yes. But the police went to the first meeting and they said their planning assumption was that away fans should be stopped from attending. But the minutes of that meeting said clearly that this decision was made in the absence of intelligence.
Right.
So then a couple of days later, in correspondence between the chairman of that committee and senior police officers, the police were told that they need to come up with, quotes, a more clear rationale for the decision.
Right.
Obviously, normally a rationale leads to a decision, not a decision leading to a rationale. But
You would hope.
That's what they did.
Right.
And then magically, by the time of the next committee, the police said that they had significant new intelligence to justify banning them.
A line we've heard before in the past.
But this is the really damning bit. The intelligence came from an online conversation they'd had with Dutch police that had taken place before the first meeting,
Right.
when they said that they didn't have any intelligence.
So they'd already had this sort of file, but it wasn't really enough.
And the claims they make about what the Dutch police told them have been completely denied by the Dutch police.
So Chief Constable Craig Guildford of Westminster Police has been hauled before Parliament a couple of times now, and he's sort of changed his story somewhat. Latest developments being that they appear to have just Googled it, and also just Googled this so-called intelligence dossier was kind of sexed up dodgy dossier. We've heard it all before, but he said it wasn't AI, but it was just someone who got the wrong end of the stick of stuff on Google. Basically, they were just trawling the internet looking for any old excuse to justify a decision they'd already made. Is that your assertion?
Well, so there was a reference in the intelligence document that the police produced, which was all secret, it's leaked out, which referred to a match Maccabi Tel Aviv played against West Ham in England, which never took place. And the strong,
That's a sort of glitch on the socials, right?
the strong suspicion is that that was an hallucination by artificial intelligence.
Right.
They've denied that they use artificial intelligence for these
Quote, we don't
purposes
use,
today.
quote, we don't use the AI, which would suggest he's not quite au fait with the AI.
Yeah,
Yes.
although West Midlands Police do use the AI because there's lots of press releases where they show off about doing so. And actually his defence was they just Googled it, which is not really reassuring anyway, but obviously he doesn't seem to know that at the top of every Google search now is an AI result from Gemini.
Now, look, let's pull this back to a slightly bigger picture. In the fact is, what this boils down to is those two crucial quotes. Well, one crucial quote is, the community wanted this. This, from a layman's perspective, punter's perspective, outside perspective, it's clear that one group within society, and you said, as you say, Islamists within the community, did not like the fact that Israeli fans, despite, yes, they did have a slightly bad reputation, and there's been incidents of violence in Amsterdam, which is equally contested of who said that. Community leaders, councillors, the police, essentially folded under pressure to Islamists within the community, and then all of this is now a cover-up. Yeah,
that is basically what seems to have happened.
Why did they do that?
Well, I think.
Why do you think they did?
Firstly, there is political pressure. Undoubtedly, the police said that they had a meeting, and they've had correspondence that they've refused to release under freedom of information laws with the local MP, who is a Gaza independent.
Yes.
And as I say, there were two councillors on.
And he was
on
openly
the
celebrating the ban once
was.
on social media. Once the ban was announced, he was kind of said, "We did it," right?
He was, yeah. So, and the politics of Birmingham are fraught in this sense because the Labour Party is losing support to these Gaza independent candidates. But actually, I think probably more important than the direct political influence was the genuine fear of disorder. But I think the police didn't want to admit that the source of the disorder was from within the local community, and they didn't really want to admit that, therefore, they are not really in control of the streets that they are supposed to police.
A very dark summation of where Britain is today, that the very people that are meant to protect our citizens against harm are themselves living in fear of harm.
Well, if you think about it, it's not actually the only example, right? So we've seen examples where most notoriously the police failed to intervene during the crimes committed by the rape gangs. Yeah. And not just the police, local authorities, social services.
It's the same old story
and
again.
Others.
And the media, vast parts of the media.
When there are protests about claims of blasphemy, whether it's about a movie that's being shown in a cinema,
or a teacher teaches a teacher who's still in hiding. We should add, a teacher is still in hiding in the United Kingdom for fear of, what.
Yeah, so if you add these things up, it is quite clear that the police are trying to appease people who threaten violence and really to try to keep secret the fact that they fear them and are surrendering to them.
It feels to me like there's a sort of... Well, I don't think we're at a moment of reckoning yet. I mean, the grooming gangs, we never really had a moment as a nation of reckoning about that until sort of Elon Musk sort of thrust it into the open agenda, was it this time last year, last January, and the sort of government were given kicking and screaming into an inquiry into that. It does feel to me, though, that there is more and more the sort of window, not necessarily the Overton window, but the window of what is it, people are willing to talk about this stuff, has massively shifted. Do you feel that, where 5-10 years ago people were scared to put their head above the parapet, to use a horrific term, but people were willing to speak out more about this sort of thing now, and actually there's a climate of people just saying, you know what, enough is enough, we are calling this stuff out now?
I think that is true. I mean, before I was in Parliament, I was writing a newspaper column. I've tried to shine a light on this problem for a number of years.
But it's been a lonely fight.
Yeah, and each time you do it, I had attempts to cancel me in different roles that I had, where there was a campaign to try to get me removed from the organising committee of the Commonwealth Games.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah,
because I'd written about these issues. I've had a death threat after a speech I gave in Parliament about free speech versus blasphemy.
Ironically.
Rather summing up the point. And I think 10 years ago, it is true that fewer people were speaking out. But I think if you actually track it over a number of years, it ebbs and flows a little bit. Because actually, at times the Blair government tried to be robust on some of these things. Yes. Actually, David Cameron's coalition government was quite robust on these things. But in some ways, I think we've gone backwards. But I think in terms of commentators, journalists, campaigners, some members of the public, there's more of a feeling. But
frontline politicians
need to be said.
From frontline politicians, I mean, we won't get into the party politics of too much, but it's not a unheard allegation that this particular government is particularly, as you say, the Labour Party is under threat from the Gaza independents, as we euphemistically have to call them these days. But the Islamist vote, the hardline Muslim bloc vote, which they used to be able to rely on as part of their strategy. Do you think this government is uniquely sort of jeopardised by the fact that politics is going to come into this?
I think that's certainly a factor. So, I think it would have seemed bizarre even 10 years ago, certainly 20 years ago, to imagine that a Labour MP would stand up in Prime Minister's questions and ask for a blasphemy law, ask to criminalise the desecration of religious texts, and for the Prime Minister to stand up and not say no.
Yes, indeed.
And that's what we saw happen last year. And the Labour Party is in this bind on these kinds of subjects. And one of the complications of this story is Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, is an MP in Birmingham in the neighbouring seat. And we know from the official record of documents that we've so far received that the Home Office was actually notified that this was a live option for the police.
She came out and said she was furious about this and was very angry that it had been cancelled.
This is one of the questions. So, in advance of the decision being made, the Home Office was told, and the Home Secretary was told in person by the Chief Constable, that this was one of the options they were considering. And the Home Office appears, from the documents that we've seen, to have done nothing until the decision was announced. There was an outcry, and the Prime Minister complained about it.
We're going to wrap up, but where does this go next? Obviously, you've got the Chief Constable of the Police, blithering before the Home Affairs Select Committee and making an ass of himself every time he appears to open his mouth. You have a Home Secretary that appears to be slightly compromised on this. Where do you think this ends up, and what is not to reduce it down to too facile, but what is a good result to conclude this? Would you like to see the Chief Constable resign?
The Chief Constable's position is obviously untenable. He will end up going, I am sure. The pressure is mounting. The details that are coming out are growing. Kemi Badenoch, that my party leader, has said this evening that he should go. There is clearly huge scepticism on the Home Affairs Select Committee about the honesty, to be frank, of the senior officers who have given evidence. So I think this is going to grow and grow, but I think it's really important. This isn't just about the future of one chief constable. We have to have a conversation about the independence of the police and about what kind of country we are and who holds the power in some of our towns and cities.
Nick Timothy, all power to your elbow. Come back and see us soon when you've got more to update. Thank you.
Thank you.